believable that they can allow this to happen. When you see the scenes, it's not believable that they can allow it to happen. And you don't have to look at much. And the one good thing is the fake news wasn't covering the invasion at all. And just like they barely covered Afghanistan. You know, Afghanistan came and went in like 2 days. They don't talk about it. You never see it on. It's the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. Really a horrible, horrible thing took place. And it was gone very quickly from the news. Other than, you know, some of the conservative news, they still covered a little bit, but I think it was the worst day. I think it also created a lot of problems like Russia going in. I think when Putin looked at the incompetence of the job they did, would have never happened with me. We were getting out also, but we were getting out with strength and with dignity. And we were taking our equipment, and we wouldn't have had 13 dead soldiers, and we wouldn't have had 38 people that were obliterated with no arms and no legs. But together we fought long and hard to rescue the Republican Party from the likes of Mitt Romney. How do we have that guy? He's worse than a rhino. I think rhinos are good compared to Mitt Romney. He's the worst. Karl Rove, Paul Ryan. How about Paul Ryan? How bad was he? And now he works at Fox. You know, he's on the board of Fox. So what's that all about, right? Wonderful. That's probably what happened to Fox. And there's no chance we're going to let them claw their way back into the power of our party. We don't want them in our party because they've hurt our party. And frankly, we don't love the job that Ron DeSanctimonious has done, or Nikki Haley, or even worse when you look, and this is the one we just cannot play games. We got to get rid of crooked Joe Biden. The most corrupt, the most incompetent, and the worst president in the history of our country. And you know, I have to say this because it's so tough, the language is so tough, but they did something to me that was unthinkable. They indicted me because I fought against a corrupt election. I got indicted. And I'm in all these really highly Democrat areas with, you know, radical left, Soros-backed prosecutors. I got areas where, you know, Republicans get 2% of the vote. Washington, D.C., you know, I'm going to close up Washington. We're going to federalize it. You can't walk down the street in Washington now. It was a great place when I was there. You can't walk down the street. You get shot. 3 people were shot the other night, killed. Walking down the street, they were tourists. People don't go there anymore. It's our nation's capital. And it's so sad to see. But when you look at, you know, what's happened, when you look at what they've allowed people to get away with, how they're destroying the fabric of our country in every way. But Washington, D.C., we're going to federalize it, take it over, make it safe, and make it beautiful. Take all the graffiti off those beautiful marble columns. You see these gorgeous marble columns, and then you see a swastika on the marble column. And we're going to get rid of all of that stuff, and we're going to take it over, and we're going to have a capital that's going to be just incredible, as it should be. And some people are, you know, people that are against that don't love our country very much. But you can't walk down the street anymore. People that work there are afraid to stay there anymore. Our country is dying, and there's no time to waste for your vote. You have to get rid of these establishment career politicians that have sold you down the river. We have great people. By the way, we also have great people in Washington. We have great people in our military. I took out ISIS in 4 months. We have great people. I met some warrior generals they could beat anyone. The people that took out ISIS were unbelievable. Raisin Cane, you know that story, right? General Raisin Cane. We love Raisin Cane, but I said, what's your name? Cane, sir. Oh, what's your first name? Well, they call me Raisin. I said, wait a minute. Your name is Raisin Cane. I love you, General. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for these stiffs that you see on television. Oh, I'm so ashamed. I walked down to the church with the president, and he held the Bible. You know, they attacked that church. You know, that church was on fire the day before. And it got very lucky. We authorized it. They built a fireproof, the area of that church was built along with the White House. And it's amazing. 2 weeks before that, they completed the job of fireproofing the basement of the church. They started a fire in the basement, and it didn't spread because of the fireproofing. But it got very badly damaged, but it didn't spread because she's clapping. It's true, right? And it was sort of luck, I guess. But I went down, I held the Bible high, And Millie said, oh, I shouldn't have walked with the president. No, he should have walked with the president. He should have been proud to walk with the president. That was the end of him. That was the end of him. And the other thing, you know, I love studying the, if you take a look, I mean, the wars, I don't know what it is. The Civil War was so fascinating, so horrible, was so horrible, but so fascinating. It was, I don't know, it was just different. I just find it, I'm so attracted to seeing it. So many mistakes were made. See, there was something I think could have been negotiated, to be honest with you. I think you could have negotiated that. All the people died, so many people died. You know, that was the disaster. If you got hit by a bullet in the leg, you were essentially going to die or lose the leg. That's why you had so many people, no legs, no arms. If you got hit in the arm or the leg, it meant you were up because the infection, gangrene. It was just such a, you know, sort of a horrible time. But that's, I was thinking to myself, because I was reading something, and I said, this is something that could have been negotiated, you know? And it was just for all those people to die, and they died viciously. That was a vicious, vicious war. And in many ways, look, there were all this, nothing nice about it, but boy, that was a tough one for our country. But I think it's, you know, Abraham Lincoln, of course, if he negotiated it, you probably wouldn't even know who Abraham Lincoln was. He would have been president, but he would have been president, and he wouldn't have been the Abraham Lincoln. Would have been different, but that would have been okay. It would have been a thing that, and I know it very well. I know the whole process that they went through, and they just couldn't get along, and that would have been something that could have been negotiated, and they wouldn't have had that problem. But it was a hell of a time. And you think of it today, I would have absolutely stopped Putin. He would have never gone in. And he didn't. You know, for 4 years he didn't. There was never even a thought of it going in. And that was the apple of his eye. He would tell me, we would talk. That was the apple of his eye, but there was no way he was going to go in. I told him, you can't go in. You go in, bad things are going to happen. And he would have never gone in. Plus, oil prices were so low that he wasn't going to be able to go in and wouldn't have been able to afford it. As soon as I got out, oil spiked up to $100 a barrel. And all of a sudden, he's making a fortune, and he saw the incompetence of Afghanistan, and he said, wow, these people are incompetent. I guess I'll go in. Unlike every other candidate in this race with me, you know in your heart, and you'll always know that I will put America first, and with God's help, we will get this job done better than ever before. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. So a vote for Donald Trump in these caucuses is a vote to secure our border. It's a vote to stop the invasion, the biggest invasion of our country ever. I mean, what's the difference between military? At least military, they're in front of you. You can shoot them. But these people are coming in, and then the crimes they're committing are just incredible. Many of them are very sick, and that gets caught by our people. They're very sick. They're letting people, we had that too, remember? Our great title, we called it title. We just called it title. But it didn't allow people that were sick to come in and infect our people. And now everybody can just pour into our country. It's a vote to rescue our economy, and it's a vote to reclaim our democracy from crooked Joe Biden and the entire criminal class in our nation's capital. They are criminals. And I was going to say before, when they indicted me, I spoke differently about him. I respect the office of the presidency tremendously. And I never talked the way I did. I'd say, you know, it's not doing the job and things that you would say. But I never said he's grossly incompetent, he's this, he's that. He is, by the way. But I wouldn't say it because I had too much respect for the office. Now I say it. He's corrupt. He's incompetent. He has no idea. I would never talk about he can't find a stairway that's, you know, 10 feet to his left, 10 feet to his right, in front of him, behind him. He walks into a wall. He walks into a wall. Where's the stair around here? I never did that stuff. And now it's different because he did something. He weaponized the DOJ and the FBI. They're after Christians. They're after Catholics especially. I mean, the Catholics, you know, I got 50% of the Catholic vote. I should have gotten 100%. The Catholics are like a target of these people. I don't understand how a Catholic can vote for these people. But I would never have spoken this way. But, you know, the worst criminals in history haven't been indicted 4 times, if you think. I always talk about Alphonse Capone, but he was pretty bad. He was tough. If he had dinner with you, this gentleman with that beautiful, let's see, if you don't like Trump, oh, I like that. You don't like the country. Stand up, say hello to them. If this gentleman had dinner with Al Capone, and if Al Capone didn't like the way he cut that beautiful beard, he'd be dead the next day. He'd be gone. He'd be gone, right? Although you're a pretty tough cookie. You might. Do you think you could have handled Al Capone? I don't know. Anyway, but thank you very much, and I do love what you have on your handsome chest. I do love it. They come up with some beautiful slogans that I'm very honored by, actually. But you know, the biggest criminals in the world weren't indicted 4 times. They were indicting me so fast. And my poll numbers were going up through the roof. And then they were going to indict me 2 more times, and I heard they got a call from Washington, please don't do it. No more indictments. This isn't working out I'd be leading by a lot, but I wouldn't be leading by the kind of numbers. Because the people understand it's a scam. It's interference with the election. It's a political witch hunt. And he's using the DOJ. He has this guy, Jack Smith, comes out of The Hague, and he's terrible, terrible human being. He's central casting, though. You look at that guy, he's like the personification of evil. He's lost a lot of cases. You know why he loses them? Because he goes too far. He's a sad sack. And you look at this guy, somebody said, why don't you treat him nicely? I said, oh, we'd be doing much worse. I mean, if you treat him nicely. There's nothing nice about him. He's a corrupt person. But you look at the people, and they're using these people to get to the Republican, not just me. Oh, and it'll get worse and worse. You watch. You'll have some congressmen. At least I'm able to explain to you guys, and you understand it. Many of you understand it better than I do. But you'll have some congressmen get a subpoena from the federal government to show up before a grand jury, and the word gets out, he's destroyed. He can't, even if he's totally innocent. But they'll go after our congressmen. They'll go after our senators. That's what they're doing. They've weaponized government like never before. And the only thing I can say is, you know, there's a 5 or 6, depending on your definition, depending on who you're asking, but there's a statute of limitations. I mean, what they have is a very dangerous thing. What they're doing is a very dangerous thing. But I would have never, until this happened, in fact, nobody thought J6 was even a possibility. If you read the stuff about, you know, that fake committee with the 2 Republicans kissing and crying, remember crying, Kissinger? But, and Liz Cheney. I mean, she has a major case of Trump derangement syndrome. I watch her on television, she's shaking. I get scared. I mean, I did knock her out of office. You know, she lost by the largest margin in history for a congressperson. Did you know that? Because any congressman doing that, congressman or woman doing that badly would drop out of the race long before the race. So they never got to see, because I'm sure there were people that were as unpopular, probably can't be many. But she lost by, I think, 40%. It's the biggest, did you know that? The biggest margin ever lost in the history of our country. And then I see her on CNN and MS. MS is worse than CNN. MSDNC. She goes, oh, my Lord. Am I right about that? It's the worst. Oh, they want to string you up. They are the most evil, and they're dishonest as hell, but they are really evil. They're bad. These are bad people. It's so funny, your reaction. Those are 2 votes I got, I'm telling you. No, they're very bad people. They're very bad. No. Well, it's not, but it's a shame. You know, I'll give you an example. I have a son, Don, who's a very good guy, and he's become hardened, very hardened, because he went down to Washington and he wanted to help, and, you know, help with, like, negotiate some deals for the country with Mexico, with Canada. Love to gets involved in Russia. He had nothing to do with Russia. Now think of it. Just put yourselves, you have a son, you love your son, you know, you love your kids. I had my son go down, and he wants to help the country. He didn't want money, he didn't want anything, just wants to help the country. Same thing with Eric's. How about Ivanka? Ivanka just wanted to help people get jobs. I said, I'll put you in the United Nations, and you'll be ambassador, and you will be better than anybody that's ever been there, 10 times better than Nikki Haley was. Ivanka would be the star of all stars. She said, Dad, I don't want to do that. I want to keep doing what I'm doing. You know what she did? She went around to see companies to get people jobs, get Walmart, to hire people. And hundreds of thousands of people were hired because of her. It's sort of not glamorous. The other would have been very glamorous, would have been so perfect for her. She would have she would have owned the world, okay? If I put her there, she would have been so perfect for that job. We would have had everybody, because she's great, smart, she's got the whole package. But she wanted to help people, and they would go after her. It's just so sad. But they went after Don. So think of this. Don spent many hours in a federal grand jury and before Congress and all the different things. And Adam Shifty Schiff, bad guy, no dummy, no dummy. These are not dumb people. But Adam Shifty Schiff would come out of a meeting that's supposed to be secret. He'd have a lot of press there because they're talking about us. I'll never forget it, because Russia turned out to be a hoax that they now all admit. It's now admitted, Times, they all admit it. It was a hoax. It was a made-up, fictional thing. And Adam Shifty Schiff comes out and said, looked right at the microphones. They're all piled up here, all these mics all over this press, all over. Donald Trump Jr. will go to prison for what he's done with Russia. Now, he knows it's a con. He's the one that created it, along with crooked Hillary Clinton and the others, right? Right? So he knows it's a con, Brad. He knows it's a con. They made it up, and it was really made up short term. It was supposed to be the reason that she lost was Russia. And they thought it would be a 24-hour deal, and it blew up. But of course, the fake news wouldn't give it up, even though they knew it was bullshit. Okay, they knew it was bullshit. They wouldn't give it up. But think of it. He knew it was a con. They made it up. It was made up. It was made up to solve the problem of how did she lose, because she wasn't expected to lose. The polls said she was going to win. I disagreed, because would come here and would have 35,000 people at a rally, and she'd come here and she'd have 9 people. And same with him. He couldn't fill up the circles, right? No, he couldn't fill up. They'd draw like 8 circles. They had to use the press to stand in the circles because they didn't have the people. But think, how bad do you have to be? You say that somebody's son is going to prison. And I actually called him. I said, Don, are you okay? I mean, is there any truth to this Russia stuff? Dad, I don't know anything about Russia, which I know. I know the kid. He's a good kid, but he becomes harder. You know, you become hardened. And he got a little bit harder. You may have even noticed in his speech, the anger. He gets angry because what happened to him was so bad. So they know the story is fake. They know the deal is made up. They know it's a witch hunt. It was put there to get rid of this bad stigma of a loss. They thought it would go away in one day, but it didn't, because the press kept it going and going and going. Went for over 2 years. And they say, they know it's a fake, and they say, he's going to prison. How bad do you have to be? You know, it's one thing if you really believe this to be true and all that, but they know it's a fake because they created it. We have everything. They spied on my campaign, all these different things. But you know it's a fake, and they say Donald Trump Jr. will go to prison for what he did with Russia. You have to be a bad seed to do that stuff. You really do. You have to be a sick, bad seed. So this election is our last chance to save America. The battle begins in Iowa on January 15th, and Joe Biden's banana republic ends on November 5th, 2024. Okay? That's true. Good. You made a good choice. I like that couple. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Nice to be here. Well, we did. We sacrificed, but you sacrificed too. You know, you sacrificed too. It's amazing when you talk about like the election. It's a conspiracy. There's no conspiracy. They spied on my campaign. You say that. This is a conspiracy, but we have all the evidence. We have all the proof. I wish we had an attorney general that would have been better than Bill Barr. Bill Barr was a coward. He didn't want to do what he should have done. And you know, it's okay in a certain way because nobody thought that you should ever do it. You rip the country apart when you get into that stuff. Nobody's ever done that except this guy, because he can't talk, can't put sentences together. He has no idea what's going on, and it's probably the only way they can win, I guess. But I don't think that's going to win. And so far, you know, let's put it this way. I think in history, I'm probably the only guy that ever got indicted 4 times whose poll numbers went through the roof. You know, usually if you get indicted, here's what happens. You go to the mic. I have decided to resign from office today, and I am going back to my family, and I will fight for my name. That's the last you ever hear of the poor guy, right? This is about 100% of the time when they get indicted. They get indicted all the time. Matt understands this. He was probably after some, but he was easy. You know, you have to be reasonable with that stuff. It's a very powerful thing. You know, in a way, the prosecutors are the most powerful people in the country. If you ever think about it, I sometimes see like 6 prosecutors, and I see some big politicians. The prosecutors are more powerful than the politicians, and they have to use that very judiciously. You don't have a country anymore, but they didn't use that in this case, because in my case, they went after me, and they would have done it more, except it's backfired. It's backfired. And if I didn't run, or if I was in 5th place or something, I would have had no indictments. This is all political stuff, including the women's stuff. The Bergdorf Goodman. I meet a woman outside of Bergdorf Goodman. I took her upstairs to a changing booth. It was all made up. And you know who's financing it? Reid Hoffman, their #1 political donor. Reid Hoffman, big fat slob. And I never use the word fat, not even with Christie. In fact, with Christie, but this guy I'll call a fat slob, because he's worse than Christie. He's worse than Christie. He's a slob. Remember with Christie, I'd say, please, sir, do not call him a fat slob. Some guy says very lowly, he's a fat slob, sir. I said, do not use the word fat. He is not a fat slob. You know, in front of 10,000 people, I'm saying, he is not a fat slob. I came to his defense. But no, this guy's bad news, Reid Hoffman. He's financing these things, you know, all of them. Every one of these cases that you see. I met a woman in front of Bergdorf Goodman, took her up to a changing booth right outside where the cash register is. This is New York City. Why didn't you scream? I was in trauma. But if you saw her interview with Anderson Cooper, you would see, whoa, that was, and she answered some questions, and he said, we're going to commercial right away. And then he comes, you saw this, and then he comes back from the commercial, and she's 100%, she's just doing what they want her to do. We're in a very dangerous time. We're in a very, very dangerous time. And I had a lawyer, by the way, that said to me, and he was a good lawyer, he's fine. He did the wrong thing, I thought. He said, sir, don't go to this trial. It's beneath you. There's no evidence. You know, this thing took place like 30 years ago. She didn't even know. She didn't know the year, the month. She didn't know anything. So long ago. And I have buildings surrounding Bergdorf Goodman. You know, you don't go into a changing booth. You wouldn't do that. You don't do anything. I have buildings surrounding it. I took her into a changing booth. Just think about how horrible this is. And it started because she wrote a book and she put a chapter in about this. And somebody called me and said, is this true? I said, no, it's not true. They said, is she a liar? Yeah, she's a liar. That was it. Then I got sued for libel, for calling her a liar. So you can't, you know, if you even answer, if you even defend yourself. But my lawyer said, you, sir, you should not be there. This is way, way below you, sir. The President of the United States, this is way below you. I said, yeah, but it doesn't look good. You have a jury. If I don't go there, they're there. If you don't go, I sort of felt I should be there. He said, sir, you shouldn't be there. This trial is bullshit. He used that term. He said, you should not be there, sir. This is beneath you. That's the term he used, beneath. So I didn't go there, and they found me not guilty of the one charge, the big charge, but guilty of stuff. I never met this, I never saw this woman, except 25 years ago, there's a picture of her and her husband, who was a nice guy. He was a newscaster. He was an African American, and she called him an ape in her book. And the judge, who's radical left, and a Clinton judge, radical left, said you're not allowed to use that in the trial. And other things. They had a dress like Monica Lewinsky. They said, we have a dress. So I said, all right, use it. It's sort of gross, right? Use it. Because I didn't do anything. I never saw this woman, other than they have a picture standing on a reception line where it's a celebrity. I'm shaking hands or something with hundreds and hundreds of people. That's the only picture they have. They said, so the dress. So I said, you know, use it. something never happened, and you say, we have to go through this. I said, use the dress. And the judge wouldn't allow it. It turned out there was nothing in the dress. The judge wouldn't allow it because he knew that there was nothing on the dress. Because the judge is a radical Democrat in New York, and so you go through it. And I continue to go through it. And now I have to pay her money, a woman that I have no idea who the hell she is, no idea. And they do it for election interference. But Reid Hoffman is the guy that's funding the whole thing. And he's the big political, he happens to be funding somebody named Nikki Haley also. By the way, you got to put that in your head. Did you know that? No. She's going like, she's being funded by Reid Hoffman too. With your help, we're going to bring our country back from hell, because our country's in hell right now. Victory cannot come soon enough as we speak. The last remnants of our open border, it's an open, broken border like nobody's ever seen in a third world country. No third world country would have a border like this. They'd fight them with sticks and stones if they had to. It's crumbling into rubble. Millions of people are storming the United States in the largest illegal mass migration in the history of the world. There's never been, you'd look at the pictures, there's never been a migration like that. There's never been an invasion like that. Hundreds of thousands of people on a quarterly basis, and tough people, tough people. They had some prisoners from the Congo the other night. Where do you come from, the Congo? Where were you? We were in prison. Why? Murder. Oh. And if you look at the population, the prison population all over the world, it's at the lowest number. They say, I don't know, I just read this stuff. But it makes sense because these, dictators and presidents and prime ministers, they're all smart. They're all cunning people. I'd do it. They're bringing them up to our border. They're getting rid of them. They're putting them into our country. They're in our country. Their prisons are emptying out. Many of them are totally empty. They're taking MS-13, the toughest gang members anywhere in the world. They make our gang members look like the nicest guys. You want to take them home and introduce them to your daughter. They make our gang members look like sweethearts, right? And their prisons are emptying out. Their mental institutions are. Do you know what these countries are saving? There was an article in the paper the other day about a psychiatrist a couple of months ago, and he's sitting reading a paper at a desk. Very plain desk, plain chair, nice guy. He said, look, I used to work 25 hours a day. I worked all the time, that's all I did, but now I don't have anybody to work with because they've all gone to the United States. He was a psychiatrist, I guess, or whatever. And he was saying this hospital was loaded with people, but now we don't have those people anymore. They said, where are they? Oh, they're in the United States. Now, do you know what that's saving countries? Same thing with the jails. And terrorists are coming in also. What they're doing to our country is not, it's when you talk about insurrection, what they're doing, that's the real deal. That's the real deal, not patriotically and peacefully. Peacefully and patriotically. You ever see Maxine Waters talk about the Republic? You go in there and you whack them. It makes you sick. Ron DeSanctimonious, Nikki Haley, and the rest of the pack will never do what it takes to secure the border because they're owned by big money Wall Street establishment owners. Now, Ron's lost most of them because he's failed. Fox gave up on him. That was the end of him. They realize you need a little personality to do this stuff. It helps to have a little personality. It helps when you don't have to use it. So far, I've used the teleprompter about 14, but isn't it better this way? I could read that teleprompter all day long. Biden can't even read the teleprompter. The other day, Matt, he's given a thing. He's a news conference because he hasn't had one in about 6 years or something. Can't have it. You can't have a news. So he picks he goes, Bill from NBC. So the guy asked him a very simple question, like about vanilla ice cream. But then they actually asked him a question about a border or something. So he goes, they ask him a question, Bill from NBC, they ask him a question. The border is very strong. It's very normal. And things are going very well on the border. Oh, thank you very much for the news conference. Thank you. And then he walks into a wall. But this is what we have as our president. We're going to end up in World War III. We're going to end up in a depression. I'll tell you, if I'm not elected, I think we're going to end up in a depression like in 1929. Because, you know, if you ever notice, every time like all the polls now say that I'm beating him, but you almost say, who wouldn't? This beautiful child, this young man, how old is he, 3? I would vote for him over Biden because he's more intelligent. Look, the kid's 3 years old. He's got better judgment. You ever hear some of the people in Obama administration, Secretary of State, different people, and others, many others, they say there's never been anybody worse on foreign policy decisions, and I see it. You know, we're stuck in that whole thing with Ukraine, very tough war to win. The one's a war machine, the other one's not, and very, very tough to win. And they say, we will not leave until there's total victory. And it's not happening that way, is it? You know how you know it's not? Because they don't cover it anymore in the fake news. You know, if they were doing well, they'd be covering it. So you sort of know that way. But just as I said, one of the biggest donors to Nikki Haley's super PAC is the same guy, Reid Hoffman. He's a ultra-left rich guy, billionaire, who's one of the Democrat Party's top funders. He's also a funder for Nikki Haley. How do you answer that, Nikki? Well, and they're trying to stop Trump. So what they want to do is they'd much rather run against the sanctimonious or Nikki, but they're the party of disinformation, and they're great at it. They are great at it. You know, if they'd use this genius for, like, making our country great, we'd be great in about 2 weeks. But they don't. They want to destroy our country. But they're always saying, we want to run against Trump. You know, you have a 50-point lead, so they say, you know, from the standpoint of the national polls, I mean, I think I have a 60-point lead or something like that, beating her by 55 points in South Carolina, where she comes from. But they don't want to run against me. Ask them, how did they do in 2016? And then, other than their cheating, we killed them in 2020. They don't want to run against me. They want to run against, and I'm the one that's beating them in the polls. There's some narrative out there, oh, she's going to, no. And the same thing that happens to me is going to happen to them, just so you understand. They'll be indicted because they'll say she was having an affair or something, you know. That doesn't mean it's lying, but she'll be indicted for something. Ron DeSanctimonious will be indicted, and he's not going to handle it the same way as I handle it. He'll be in a corner crying, saying, Mommy, Mommy, I want to go home. He's not going to handle it this way. You think anybody else could get up here and speak to you all day and get indicted 4 times and have you 9 trials against them? All fake trials? Nobody else. Nobody else. I love that trial. Nobody else. But just like, you know, some people didn't like the name DeSanctimonious, but it really has caught on. I liked it. Some names I didn't like. I didn't like Crooked Hillary, but it caught on. You know, sometimes they catch on. Low Energy Jeb, that was a good one. That took him out of the race as soon as I said it. That was the end of his race because they knew I was right. But Ron DeSanctimonious, so what we do is, I think it's a great name because sanctimonious, you know, he's sanctimonious because I got him the election and he didn't appreciate it. You know, he was willing to run against the guy that got him the election. So we call it Ron DeSanctis. Write them both out when you go home. Ron DeSanctimonious and write Ron DeSanctis. Just, it's like the middle of the word. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful, genius thing. Because DeSanctimonious is great, but you can't keep saying it. So now the other day he's being interviewed by semi-legitimate press, meaning one of the big networks. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to have Governor Ron DeSantis with us today. You know, my name is DeSantis. Then he changed his name, remember? DeSantis. I said, never change your name in the middle of a campaign, Ron. I just put it out on Truth. Truth is the greatest. All go to Truth. Forget about those other places. But listen, I said, never change your name in the middle of a campaign. You could do it before, after, but don't change your name in the middle of a campaign. He said, DeSantis. I didn't like his, but actually I like DeSantis better, right? Don't you? But one of those things. But people who fund Nikki Haley and Ron aren't working for your interests. They're working for the interests of other nations and themselves. And so are those two. Nikki would sell you out just like she sold me out. I mean, I'll never run against him. He was a great president. Why would I run? Ladies and gentlemen, I've decided to run. You know, it's like after listening to that for 2 years. She came to Mar-a-Lago to see me to inform me that she'll never run. They're all false rumors. But then she ran. Probably doing a little better. You know, they had a poll the other day, it was a classic, just to show you how dishonest the fake news media is. And it said, headline, Nikki Haley surging. I said, oh shit, that's not good. No, I figured I was in trouble. The new poll must be. So I went up 7 points, and it's hard to go up 7 when you're already at 68. You know, there's not that much you can. She went up 3, and DeSantis went down 1. So the headline was Haley, and she is surging against him. But you had to read 3 paragraphs down. It said, while President Trump is at 74, so she was at 11, he was at 10, and I was at 74, and the headline is, Nikki, and I went up 7, and she went up 3. And the headline was Haley surging. But that's the fake news media. But it did disturb me for approximately a second. Nikki would grant amnesty to Biden's illegal aliens in her very first week, and sadly, the establishment losers and sellouts lagging far behind us in the Republican primary cannot be trusted on taxes, trade, or anything else. Look, like they betrayed me, they're going to betray you. One thing about a politician, their original thought is what they go with. They're globalists, and they always will be. They can't help it. And, you know, some people agree with them, but not a lot. I don't agree with them. I think it's horrible. That's why we're in such trouble as a nation. And I want to help other countries. I'll keep them out of wars. I'll threaten them. I'll do threats. I'll do whatever you have to do. Like I did with Macron, with the wine and the champagne. I'll do whatever you have to do. They were going to put a big tax. You know that story. We're going to put a big tax. I told it yesterday. And it's funny, they're good stories because you can do so much without even doing anything. For 2 months, my people worked on it. They couldn't get him to stop. Top people, but they couldn't get it. He was going to tax all American companies doing business in France. Emmanuel, who was a nice guy, you know, but he likes France, and I like the USA. You can't blame him, and you can't blame me. So I gave him 2 months. They came in, Secretary of Commerce, secretary, a couple of secretaries. I had a lot of power working on that. I didn't like it, you know. I don't even like some of these American companies that are, you know, doing business over there. But they're American companies, so I didn't want it to happen. So they came in after 2 months. They couldn't do it. They told me they can't. So I said, call him up. They call him up. Sir, Emmanuel Macron is on the phone from France. I said, Emmanuel, I understand you want to. At first I said hello. Hello, Emmanuel, how have you been? Everything good? See, that's more than President Xi says. President Xi is all business. He stands up. We will. First time I met him. And I like this. I think it's incredible. I think it's incredible. There's no games. I meet him. Hello. Hello. We will immediately get down to business. I said, good. Loosen up a little bit, you know, but good. Then I had to tell him we're sending 58 missiles to Syria, which he was protecting. Over the chocolate cake, right? You know, that wasn't so easy. And I didn't think he spoke any English. Never said hi. This most beautiful person, woman. You're not allowed to say that anymore. You know, if you say somebody, a beautiful woman, that's the end of your political career. But, you know, so be it. That would be maybe not such a bad thing. But this beautiful interpreter comes in, and she would say, hello, and it's great to meet you. Another was speaking for him. And I'm with him for 2 days, got along with him great. We had a very good relationship until COVID. That was just a step too far for me. It was me. I couldn't stand what they did, even though I think it was incompetence. I don't think it was the other, but I think it was incompetence. But they're out and they're saying hello, and they're saying all of the different things. And we started getting down, and it was so beautiful to see because so many people, they come in to see you. Hi, beautiful day. Isn't it beautiful? Oh, how'd the Yankees do last night? How are we doing? How's Iowa doing? How's their wrestling team doing? Not bad, right? How is it doing? Pretty good, right? You know, you go through about half an hour of stuff. This guy comes in, looks at you. We will immediately talk business. I said, okay, good. That's why, you know, there's no games. They don't waste a lot of time. And I respect that. I respect it really greatly. And we need people that can deal with that. I dealt with it. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars from that gentleman, and he liked me, and I liked him. We got along great until COVID. We got along great till COVID, but we had a great relationship. I had a great relationship with Putin. The fake news hates when I say that. He shouldn't be dealing with Putin. He said he gets along with Putin. Somebody asked me, is President Xi of China, now he controls 1.4 billion people ruthlessly. Ruthlessly. No games, right? They said, is President Xi of China a brilliant man? I said, yes, he is. He's a brilliant man. Next day, Trump said President Xi is brilliant. I said, yeah, I did. They want me to say, no, he's not a very smart guy. You know, he just runs 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. It's crazy, and they have to straighten out. Iowa does not want politicians like Ron or Nikki who both support a 23% national sales tax. You don't want a national. Every time you buy a John Deere tractor, 23%. Remember when I said buy bigger tractors and more land because I got you all that money? I said it's coming, and you waited, and you were loyal because it takes a little while. You know, you have to let it gestate a little bit when you're negotiating with these people. But they end up buying $50 billion a year. They were buying peanuts compared to that. It was a great trade deal. That was great, and USMCA was great. But you don't want politicians like Ron or like Nikki who both want to gut Social Security and Medicare for our great seniors, and they want to do it. They're going to do it. Ron voted 3 times while he was in Congress to raise the retirement age, Social Security, to 70. And Nikki says the retirement age at 65 is way too low. It must be much higher. And that's what they do. I mean, that's because that's their inclination. Now they say, oh, we'd never do a thing like that. Unlike DeSantis and Nikki Haley, we will always protect Social Security and your Medicare. We're always going to take it. Look, we have such wealth in this country. We have wealth in the form of liquid gold right under our feet. But this guy doesn't want to take it out. He says it's environmentally not good. And yet he'll take tar from Venezuela and will refine it in Houston, Texas. It's the worst oil, the worst stuff you can get. Venezuela, it's got a lot of it, but it's literally tar, very thick, heavy. There's only one refinery in the world that can refine it, and that's in Houston, Texas. So they drop all this crap into this place. It refines. It goes into the atmosphere, you know. And these same people are talking about. They're talking about global warming. They're talking about all of the different things. You know, global warming doesn't work for them anymore. So now they call it climate change. Global warming, and then all of a sudden they see the ice cap is getting bigger, bigger, bigger. They say this term is not working for us. Let's just call it climate change, which is genius, because climate change, if it gets cold, it gets warm, a lot of rain, no rain, climate change, it works for any event. On my first day back in the White House, I'll terminate every open borders policy of the Biden administration, stop the invasion on our southern border, and begin the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, because we have to. Not one thing, there's not one thing when you think of this. Thank you very much. There's not one thing that's gotten better under crooked Joe Biden, not one thing. Name one thing that's gotten better. Under the Trump administration, you were better off, your family was better off, your neighbors were better off, your communities were better off, and our country was so much better off. America was stronger, richer, safer, and more confident than ever before when I was behind that beautiful Resolute desk. The Resolute desk, 1 of 7. You pick your own, but I love that desk. That was a beautiful desk. And the nation was safe. When I was your president, America was respected like never before. Viktor Orban, probably the toughest man in Europe, one of the toughest leaders in the world. They said, you know, Trump is out now. The whole world is blowing up. We didn't have a problem with Russia, Ukraine. We didn't have a problem with President. We didn't have a problem with anybody. Israel would have never happened. That would have never, because I told you, Iran was broke. They didn't have the money to do it. Now they have $250 billion. $250 billion, not including the $6 billion that they were paid for 5 hostages. $6 billion they got for 5 hostages. And they got $10 billion on top of that for the electricity going to Iraq. You know, we released another $10 billion, but that's peanuts compared. They're making so much money with the oil. And we have, remember this, we have more than anybody. We were going to make so much money. We didn't have to go after Social Security, and we didn't have to go after Medicare and all of the other things. We were going to make so much money. We have bigger, think of this, bigger than Saudi Arabia, bigger than Russia. And I got Anwar, Alaska, approved that Ronald Reagan couldn't do. He tried like hell. He couldn't do it. He couldn't get it approved. Anwar is the biggest, probably the biggest find in the world, I think bigger than Saudi Arabia, they say. I got it approved. And in his first week in office, Biden ended it. But we'll get it approved again. And the people of Alaska, but it's not the people in Alaska, this country, with the money that we would make. You know, when you ask, like in Saudi Arabia, when I'm there, I think they're terrific people, actually. We've lost Saudi Arabia to China. I mean, who would think that? But we've essentially lost Saudi Arabia to China. because of stupidity, stupid people. It's an impossibility to even think about it. But when you ask them, like they bought 100 Boeing 777s, it's a big wide-body jet, I say, how did you finance that? Finance? They didn't know what the word finance meant. Finance? We have cash. When they do projects, massive projects, they have more cash, they have oil. We have more oil than they do. We were going to pay off our debt. We were all started. We were ready to rock. You know, we were filling up the strategic reserve, which he, by the way, has brought now down to the lowest level in history. It's the lowest. These are these massive salt mines under different states, mostly Louisiana. Massive salt mines, and they hold the oil. It's natural to them. They don't have to do anything. They put a hole in the ground. They pour the stuff in, and it's massive. I got 80 million barrels in there at a really cheap price. But think of it. He used it, and it's supposed to be used for military, for war, for real problems. He used it to keep gasoline prices down during the election so that somebody would pay, and it's just a temporary fix. It's actually very small compared to all of the cars and everything else, but they used it. Now it's at the lowest level it's ever been, and it's really meant for war. It's meant for, you know, real emergencies, the real stuff. But we're not respected as a nation anymore. We'll soon be respected again. I promise you that. If we win this election like we have to, we have no choice. We have no choice. This guy's bad. They've got their plan. Their plan is, you know, we're all threats to democracy. That's their plan. They think that's good. He can't use anything else because they haven't done anything else. He can't say that they did great with inflation. He can't say everything is bad. We're going to lose our dollar as the standard all over the world because so many countries now are backing away from us. I wouldn't let them back away. I say, you want to back away? We don't do business with you. They'll be back in 2 seconds. But eventually, I'm not going to be able to say that if they take it too far down the line because we will have lost our wealth and we will have lost our power. We've lost a lot of it already. Joe Biden gave that ridiculous speech yesterday because he can't talk about any of the things that he's done. He's got no successes. All he can talk about is we're a threat to democracy. But he's a threat to democracy. I say it always back. I always put Joe Biden as a threat to democracy. Crooked Joe is a complete and total failure as a president. Everyone knows it. His people know it. I find it hard to believe that they're going to let him go. And I found it hard to believe the first time. That was, you know, 2020. I found it very hard to believe that they were going to let him go. I thought he was terrible, but, you know, they rigged it, and they have an advantage. The Democrats have a voting advantage because they have certain groups that are going to vote for him no matter what. They sort of have like 39% of the vote no matter what, no matter who it is, and he's at 38. So, you know, he's one below the number that's impossible to get at. We have to do it the old-fashioned way. We have to run the East Coast like I did in 2016, like I did also in 2020, but, you know, we didn't quite get a couple of those states that we won by a lot. We were doing so well in remember Pennsylvania? We were up by like 900,000 votes with, I think it was 900,000 votes with 73% of the vote. I think if I would have lost every vote, I would have won Pennsylvania. I love Pennsylvania. And all of a sudden, there was a mistake, like 3:02 in the morning. Oh, we just happened to find about 1 million votes. Oh, look, we just found, they're tied. And then you lose it by a couple of votes. You know, these guys, I'm telling you, if they put the genius into running our country, it would be, I probably wouldn't be running. I'd say the country's a fine-tuned machine, but they don't. They're evil. They're basically evil people. But they lie about us, and Americans aren't going to stand for it. So it's no wonder the same corrupt forces that have been fighting us every step of the way, and they are fighting every step of the way on everything now, breaking every rule and shattering every norm in a lawless attempt to keep us from defeating them at the ballot box. They can't beat us with the vote. They know that. They didn't beat us the last time with the vote. You get the highest number in history and you lose. Where is John McLaughlin? Is he here? The great John McLaughlin? You know, he's the great pollster, the greatest pollster in the world. He's here. I know he's here, probably backstage. But he told me, wow, did you do great? And I said, well, but, you know, things happen. Even the polling, they had me down 19 points in Wisconsin, but I just left Wisconsin, and I could see that we were doing so great. But they had me down, the Washington Post, ABC fake news. And I was down 19 points. And I said, I can't be. I just left. The people are going crazy. They love us. I said, why would they do 19 if they were going to cheat? Why don't you do 4 or 5, and it gives them credibility for the next election? He said to me, they don't care about the next election. If you do 19 points down, people won't vote. If you do 4 or 5 points down, people will vote because you have a chance. And it turned out I won the state. And yet I had this poll. And what they do is they do it to suppress the vote. There are so many different things. I mean, I have a head full of things. You could talk all day long about it. It's interesting. But, they say you're down. And if you're down enough, think of it. Why don't they do 4 or 5? Because people will vote for that, but they won't vote at 19 for that. Even if they love you, they'll stay home because they say, we don't want it. It's too cold. That's why I hear your night's going to be pretty cold next week. And 9 days, 8 days. So you just have to put on that warm coat and get out there. I said it to one of our people, and they said, oh, that's good news. I said, why is it good? Because their people don't have the enthusiasm to vote. And my people will walk on glass. They don't care, right? Right? They'll walk on glass. She's going to vote. You're going to vote? Yes? I have a feeling. It's interesting. I was just asking one of our people back there. They said, no, we'd love bad weather because the weather's not going to keep our people away. It's going to keep them away. And, they were supposed to have a rally at my hotel this morning, a Nikki Haley rally. And this sort of speaks to what I'm talking about because Biden had the same thing. He couldn't get people to a rally. So they were going to have a rally so that when I walked out of the hotel, they have, we love Haley, we love Haley. You know how many people showed up? One person! Secret Service said, sir, there could be a rally tomorrow morning. Nikki Haley's organized a rally at the front entrance to your hotel, so when you come out, it could get a little nasty. Oh, good. It's all right. I walk out, how's the rally? They said, we don't see anybody. I walk out, there's one guy. Guy goes, hi, President, hi. He's got a Haley thing. Hi, President. I said, vote for me. I said, I think he's going to vote for me, actually. No, so there's no enthusiasm. But when I said about the weather, they said the worse the better because we won't lose one vote. We got enthusiasm like nobody's ever had before. Joe Biden is really a threat, and he's weaponizing law enforcement for high-level election interference like our country's never seen before. We've never seen this before. This is Banana Republic. This is third world nation because we're beating him so badly. If we weren't beating him, I wouldn't be indicted. I tell you, if I was doing poorly or I was in third place, fourth place, especially if I didn't run, I'd right now be in Monte Carlo, maybe, or I'd be someplace that would be very nice. But right now I'd be someplace that'd be saying, be interesting to watch the election. Be boring. It would be very boring by comparison. But I'd be someplace very nice. I have nice places all over the place, right? And it's really amazing to see what's happened. It's been really amazing. But I loved when they said it, that the worse the weather, the better, because we're not going to lose. They said he used the expression, they'll walk on glass. They don't care it's going to be a little bit cold that night. In the new Morning Consult poll, we're trouncing the Republican primary field with Trump at 66, just came out, DeSanctimonious at 11, and Haley at 11, so they're tied now. We're also leading big, and the Des Moines Register was a fantastic poll that came out. And I only say fantastic if we're leading by a lot. If we're not leading by a lot, I either don't talk about it or discredit the poll. That poll doesn't mean a thing. But the Des Moines Register is a very respected poll. The woman that runs it is very respected. And that was a number that, they haven't even seen before. We're also leading big here in Iowa, but we're taking nothing for granted because we want you to get out and vote. The general election, we're crushing Crooked Joe by historic margins in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Ohio, Florida, and virtually every other state. They want this one narrative out. I was telling you before, they want to say, we really want to run against Trump, because that's what I'd say too. Because it looks like they have no choice, number one. But we really want to run against Trump because that's demeaning to me. And, it's like, oh, they want to run against me. Now, if you look at the polls, actually, she's losing to Biden almost every. She had one poll that looked good, but it was a Fox poll, of course. But other than that, she's getting killed, and he's getting killed by Biden. Hard to believe you can be losing to Biden, to be honest with you. But it's a party thing. The radical left Democrats rigged the presidential election of 2020, and we're not going to let them rig the presidential election of 2024. We're not going to let them do it. We're not going to let them do it, right? These people are bad. They're evil. Every time the radical left Democrats, Marxists, communists, and fascists indict me, I consider it a great badge of honor. I really do. I'm being indicted for you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I wonder what my parents would say as they looked down. I said, my kid was indicted 4 times. I wonder if anybody in the country's ever been indicted that many times. I don't think so. I mean, how many times you get indicted once or twice if you kill people, but then you get put in jail so you don't get indicted after that, right? Of course, in this country, you don't get put in jail. If you're a certain person, you don't even get in trouble if you kill people. But if you're with us, they put you in jail. Look at what's happened with the J6 hostages. The hostages, that's a horrible thing. And yet Antifa knocks down Portland, destroys Portland. If I didn't put soldiers into Minneapolis, you wouldn't have that city left. Remember the CNN reporter standing there saying, this is a friendly protest. And behind him, the entire city is burning. It's as long, the entire city is burning down. Never forget, our enemies want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedom. That's what's happening. They want to silence me because I will never let them silence you. And in the end, they're not after me, they're after you. I just happen to be standing in their way. That's true, actually. But this is far more than a campaign. This is the greatest political movement in the history of our country. Maybe in the history of the world, but let's just take our country. That's okay. Together we ended the NAFTA disaster where you were getting ripped off, and especially the farmers in Iowa. That was a horrible thing. And you know why I know that USMCA is so good? Because they're trying, Canada and Mexico are trying desperately to renegotiate the deal. So don't do it. They shouldn't do it. But it's the best trade deal they say ever made. Actually, the deal I made with China might even be better. And I made a great deal with Japan. I had to break a deal with Abe. He was a great man. He was assassinated, but he was great. He was such a great guy, such a great leader. They loved him in Japan. But I went to him. I said, Shinzo, this deal is crazy. He said, I knew you'd be coming to me next. They lived with it for 25 years, ripping off our country. And he looks at me and goes, he didn't say like we could. He said, all right. And I renegotiated the whole deal. He said, I knew you'd be coming to us. Billions, and we're talking billions of dollars. I took on communist China like no administration in history, bringing in hundreds of billions of dollars and pouring it into our treasury when no other president had gotten 10 cents from China. Not one president got anything from China. And they wouldn't ask. I don't know what it is. It's like hard to believe. But just as I took in hundreds of billions of dollars, I would say they weren't fond of me. That's why a lot of people think that what happened with COVID or China virus was, a plan. I just don't think that. I think it was incompetence. I think the scientist came out to have lunch with his girlfriend, and she died, and then all of a sudden other people, and it just grew. I believe that was what happened, but who knows? I also said right from the beginning that I picked the location, right? I picked that location. I said, that's where the lab. It was the lab. And I knew certain things that maybe other people didn't, but it was a terrible thing. $50 trillion to the world. The world, many places were much harder hit than we were. And just nobody knew. This was like the hidden enemy. You couldn't find it. Wuhan, I said, it comes from the lab in Wuhan. They said, no, it comes from, first they tried to blame France, then they tried to blame Italy, remember? They tried to blame everybody. Then they said it comes from bats 2,000 miles away. I said, no, it comes from Wuhan. It comes from your stinking lab. But just as I promised, I also stood up for ethanol, and I issued a historic rule declaring the E15 would be made available all year round and letting them use existing pumps, which saved hundreds of millions of dollars and a lot of jobs. I said, how does the old equipment compare to the new equipment? I've heard this many times. I hear it. I buy a lot of John Deere stuff, a lot of tractors and a lot of things for all the properties I have. And they said, well, actually, the old stuff is better. I think the old stuff is better. The new stuff has so many environmental computers on it. You have to go to MIT, like my uncle. Go to Dr. John Trump, the longest-serving professor in the history of MIT, Dr. John Trump. Think of it. You think Biden has that in his family? I don't think so. I don't think so. He may have, but it'll be a shock. Ron DeSantis spent his entire career as a raging opponent of ethanol, and he will destroy ethanol. He was totally against it. Now, all of a sudden, a couple of weeks ago, he came out in favor of ethanol, when the election's over. But I will protect ethanol just the way I did for 4 years in the White House. Everybody would come to me from Iowa. They were saying ethanol was really going to be dead. They were going to kill it. And I saved it. Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, shortly after we win the presidency, because it's we, not I, but after we win the presidency, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine settled. I know both of them very well. Ron DeSanctimonious, Nikki Haley will never end the endless wars. They want the endless wars in a certain way. They don't even know it because they're both bought and paid for by the neocons and the warmongers and the corrupt Washington establishment, the military establishment. And they've never seen a war that they didn't like. Look at their stances on these things. It's ridiculous. Countries that don't want us there, countries that you've never even heard of. And we're losing our blood and we're losing our treasure doing this all over the world. We want to protect our country. And those domes are starting to work. I didn't like it when Ronald Reagan suggested it because we didn't have the technology. We do have the technology now. And we're going to build a giant dome over our country to protect us from a hostile source. And I think it's a great thing, and it's going to all be made in the United States. And that's something that I consider productive. When I watch our guys operate those things, it's unbelievable. Missile coming in. These geniuses sit down. Most of them are, they're from MIT, but they sit down, bing, boom, it's gone. It's amazing. I think we could use it. Do you like that? I mean, isn't that better than giving other countries billions of dollars, billions? We're going to give billions of dollars to other countries and so they can build a dome, but we don't have a dome ourselves. We're going to have the greatest dome ever, but now we have the technology. We have unbelievable technology. Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis both want to send your hard-earned money to bankroll endless conflict overseas. Just take a look at their votes. Take a look at Ron when he was a congressman. He had everything, just as much as they wanted. Well, they support real cutting of benefits, substantial cutting of your benefits and services for American citizens, especially for seniors. Under my leadership, we will turn the page forever on those foolish, stupid days of never-ending wars. They never ended. We're in Iraq for 21 years. We're in Afghanistan for 19 years. And we don't even fight to win. If you're going to be in, you got to fight to win. Remember in Iraq, I was a civilian then. But I used to say very strongly, I used to say, don't go in. But if you do go in, keep the oil. Well, you know who has the oil right now? That was one of the dumbest wars ever. Iraq and Iran were the same. They were the same power. You had Saddam Hussein, and I will say they hung that sucker, and he looked at him and he spit in their face. He wasn't begging. He wasn't saying, please don't do this to me. He spit right in their face, but, tough guy. But you had Iraq and Iran, and they were almost identical. For 1,000 years, with different names, they'd been fighting each other. And one would move 3 feet this way, and then they'd move 3. But we didn't have to do anything because they basically, then they'd stop. They'd be exhausted after 3-4 years. Then they'd start. This went on for hundreds of years. Then we go in and we obliterate one side. And now the other side's a great power. We should have never done that. We should have never gone into the Middle East. And we didn't need to. We were in the Middle East for one very strong reason. We needed their oil. But we have more oil than they have. But we didn't use it. And maybe we didn't even know that. Maybe we didn't even know how much we have. But we have far more oil than they have. But we were in it for the oil. And we have to protect Israel, too. Second reason, we have to protect Israel. Let's even say that's the first reason. Maybe I'll say that's the first reason. Because we don't need their oil. It's funny, when you were totally energy independent under me. We're going to be energy dominant within a matter of months. We're going to be dominant all over the world. We're dominant. We went to number one. We were in 4th place. And after about a year and a half, we were number one. We passed Russia and we passed Saudi Arabia by a lot. But we were going to be number one for a long time. We were going to make so much money with that oil. We were going to send it all over. It's going to be great. Now these lunatic, radical left, Green New Deal scammers are, the concept of oil is just so. It's our greatest form of wealth. I mean, what you can do with that, you'll pay off your $35 trillion in debt. You'll do things that you wouldn't have even believed possible. And we have the best oil, too. It's not just the quantity. We have the best. Canada has a lot, but it's very similar to Venezuela. It's tar, it's called the sand the sand dunes, and it's a very expensive process to refine it. But we have the best oil, we have the most oil. We will restore peace through strength. It can be done through strength. You don't have to necessarily send people to die. You have to be prepared to do things, but I think it'd be very unlikely we'd ever have to do it. I'll end Biden's inflation nightmare, save our nation from debt. We had no inflation, think of it. But we will drill, baby, drill. We'll be making so much money. We'll be making so much. We have something that nobody has. China doesn't have it. China doesn't have it. China has everything they need for batteries, but they don't have what? They don't have a thing called gasoline. And yet we're going to go away from that, and we're going to go right into the hands of China. How stupid are we? How stupid. On day one, I will also cancel crooked Joe Biden's insane ethanol-killing electric vehicle mandate. They don't go far. They don't go far. Very simple. I'd like to give you a much more complex, I like dealing in complexity, but I'd like to give you a much more but it's very simple. They don't go far. Let's drive down, get some potatoes from Idaho. Well, sir, that'll be about 6 stops. Where's there a charger? Sir, there's a charger. We have to go approximately 100 miles up here. It's the craziest thing, I tell you, these people. And they want to take away your gas stoves. I have friends, they cook. A lot of people cook, and they like gas better. I don't know if it's better or not, but it seems to be better. They want to take them away. We're going to end all of that stuff on day one. The car mandate. And if you want to buy electric, you can buy electric, but you'll also buy combustion engines, gasoline, and you'll have the combination, which is fine too. I like the combination actually better than I like all electric. But just as I did before, I'll appoint strong, highly qualified pro-Constitution Supreme Court justices who will interpret the law as written. And I'll direct a completely overhauled DOJ to investigate every radical, out-of-control prosecutor in America for their illegal, racist, and reverse enforcement of the law. And also, we're going to indemnify all police officers and law enforcement officials. I met a lot of great ones back there, all throughout the United States, to protect them from being destroyed by the radical left lunatics that are running our cities and states, for taking strong actions on crime, because they can stop this crime. And somebody told me the other day, and we have these stores in New York. Love to go. I used to love to go to them. You did, like drugstores and grocery stores. Everything's now got glass on top. You want to buy aspirin, and you have to call a clerk, which takes you an hour. They come over, they open it. They open a door, and they give you and then they close it. Because if they leave the shelves open, the place will be raided. I mean, would anybody even think that's possible? We have to bring back law and order in our country. And we're going to rebuild our cities into beacons of hope, safety, and beauty, better than they've ever been. We'll work with the Democrats. We'll work with the Democrats because they run those cities, and the cities are terrible. What's going on? You look at the crime rate. We've never seen anything like it. And they're dirty, filthy dirty. It's horrible what's happened to our cities. Run by, in all cases, Democrats. Safety will again be restored so that children can go outside and play in the park like they used to. You could take your kids to the park, and you wouldn't even think about it, without being beat up, molested, or shot. That's what happens today. And we're going to fight for much better health care than Obamacare. Obamacare is a catastrophe. Nobody talks about it. Without John McCain, we would have had it done. But John McCain, for some reason, couldn't get his arm up that day. Remember? He goes like that. That was the end of that. Well, we almost had it, but we're going to make it much less expensive for the people. Not necessarily for the government, for the people, and it's going to be much better care. And it may be an offshoot of Obamacare. We may add on to it. I'm not looking for any credits. I'm just looking to get much less expensive and much better health care because it's not good. It's not good. It never was good. We kept it going. We did a good job of I had a choice. Let it rot and let it do terribly and everybody, or make it as good as it can be. And we made it as good. It was the right thing to do. But as president, I could have destroyed it just by not feeding it. I did the right thing, but we really have to get much better health care in our country. On day one, I will sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto our children. All right? Amazing. It's amazing that you have to even say these things. You know? Who would ever think, you know, your children go into surgery, you don't even know if they can, so they're operating on your daughter. They are. Can you believe this? They're taking over. It's just, but who would believe not one penny would go to any school that has a vaccine mandate or a mask mandate? These are mandates that are very bad, very dangerous. And the other one, I will keep men out of women's sports. Who would believe? And the new one is fighting. Now they want to have the men fight women. And honestly, I don't want to sound chauvinistic. That's not going to be a good situation. That's not going to fight you. That's not going to be a good situation. That's a terrible. I mean, can you imagine? I know that a lot of these fighters. I go to the UFC. Dana White's great. I mean, he's phenomenal what he's done. Right, for the people that know about that, he's something. I mean, amazing what he's done. But these are tough guys. These are people, and the women that fight are very tough too. They fight against each other. But boy, that will be a terrible thing. But they want, that's what they're fighting. They want them to fight. Look at the weightlifting. You know, the weightlifting came out. The record's like 150 pounds more. You know, I do it. My wife gets very upset. She says, it's not presidential when you do that. It's not. But this is Saturday. You know, we can take it. But, you know, not presidential. But, you know, you have this great champion, and she goes up, and they put an eighth of an ounce on that side and that side of these big barbells, these big, and I think 216 pounds. That's a lot. And she's there with everything, and she's going to do it, and she lifts it up, and her parents are so proud. Go, baby, go, go. Oh, Mom, I can't do it. And again, you know, the record stood for like 18 years. And then a person comes up who happened to decide to go and wants to become a woman. And they say, have you lifted before? No, I haven't. Well, why don't you give it a shot? He goes up to the same one. Bing. He's going, bing. Right? No, it's so demeaning to women. It's so ridiculous. But now the fighting is, can you imagine that? It'd be horrible. It's a horrible thing. A horrible thing. Everybody knows. Look at some of these track and field records, you know. They're knocking them out by, like the swimmer. It lasted 16 years. She wants to swim. She's a great all-American swimmer. She looks left, she looks right, she looks left. All her friends, she's been growing up with these people because, you know, you set the pyramid, right? They look, and she sees this huge guy, this person, and she goes, man, wow. He's like Wilt Chamberlain, except slightly larger, right? He's got a bigger wingspan. And I always say, in a joking manner, she suffered a terrible tragedy. She was very badly injured, right? Because he went by her so fast that she got tremendous wind burn, you know? He's going by her at a level, no, the whole thing, and he broke the record by many seconds, you know? This is a thing that stood like 1/100th of a second, and, you know, they break it by like 19 seconds. The whole thing, can you imagine that you have to say you're going to keep men out of women's sports? Who would think that that's even possible to say? It's just crazy. And these radical left lunatics are really into it. They really think it's like a good thing. I don't get it. You'll have to, he was a big football player, you know, you'll have to tell me. You think there's a person that, yeah, there's probably a couple out there, you know, probably that could stop you. They'd stop you. They may need a weapon, but they'll figure it out, you know, they're very smart. But I'll fully uphold your Second Amendment, which was under siege, total siege, and will protect the innocent life, and we will restore free speech. We will restore free speech, and we will restore and secure our elections. Our goal will be one-day voting with paper ballots, all paper ballots, and voter ID. And every governor should do that right now. Every Republican governor should do that right now. There's no reason for them to wait because our elections are a disgrace. But until then, Republicans have to win. So if you took the 10 worst presidents, remember this, I say it all the time. I used to have it 5 worst. Remember, I do top 5. But I said, it's nothing compared to the damage that he's doing. If you took the 10 worst presidents in the history of our country and you added them all up, all of them, they will not have done the damage that crooked Joe Biden has done to our country. You could take the 10 worst presidents. I mean, what he's doing at the border, and it's a very difficult problem. You know, we're going to deport people, but, you know, when you have 15, 16 million people, this is not like a simple thing to do. What they're doing to our country is incredible. This is not easy. It'll be the largest deportation in history. But this is a very difficult thing. You know who was a big, strong person on that is Dwight Eisenhower. He deported a tremendous number of people. Who would think? But he was very much, he was right. But it's nothing like this. And he didn't have people coming in from prisons and mental institutions. He just had people coming in. So if you want to save America from crooked Joe Biden, then get every patriot you know, make sure they're registered Republicans and get them out to vote in their local precinct caucus and you got to do this 7 p.m. on Monday, and I'll see you there if you're in the one that I'm at. They don't want me to tell you the one I'm at. You know why? I got a couple of things going. They don't want really, but I'll be here. I promise you. I'll be in the state, and we're going to all work together. I'll be careful. I may be there. So it's Monday, January 15th. Remember, you're first in the nation because I kept you there. Nobody else. Nobody else. People like to say, oh. And the Democrats, remember the Democrats, they left. They took off. And I respect, look, first in the nation. Iowa, first in the nation. I say farmers, manufacturers, and politics. And there's something nice about it. It's a tradition. And I was never going to let that go, and I will never let it go. And I've told you that now for 8 years, right? And for 8 years, I kept you here. The whole world is watching, so learn how to caucus and find out caucus locations where it's appropriate for you, which I said earlier, oftentimes it's different from where you normally vote, so you have to go and make sure you get it right. And it's at ia.donaldjtrump.com. So that's enough of that stuff, but just go out and do it. You're all smart as hell. You'll be able to figure it out in about 2 minutes. From Fort Dodge to Cedar Rapids, from Des Moines to Davenport, and from Waterloo to Sioux City right here, we're all with you. We are with you like nobody's ever been with you. No president's ever been with you like I've been with you. No president's ever had to be persecuted. It's a combination of prosecuted and persecuted. I got them both. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. But we stand on the shoulders of generations of Iowa patriots who tamed the wilderness, braved the elements, tilled the soil, worked the fields, built the factories, and poured out their blood, sweat, and tears to make this country into the greatest nation in the history of the world. But now we are a nation in decline. We really are. We're a nation in very serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. We're a failing nation. We're a nation that has lost its confidence, it lost its willpower, and it's lost its strength. Think of that. How sad is that? When you say it's lost its confidence, it's true. We've lost our confidence. We're no longer a confident nation. And 3 years ago, we were the most confident nation. We were more confident than this nation ever was. We're a nation that has lost its way, but we're not going to allow this horror to continue. 3 years ago, we were a great nation, and we will soon be a great nation again. It was hardworking patriots like you who built this country, and it's hardworking patriots like you who are going to save our country. We will fight for America like no one has ever fought before. 2024 is our final battle. It's our final battle. We're going to win that battle. We're going to turn this nation around. We're going to make America great again. America first. But it's our final battle. It's the last battle. It's the last shot at it. Because they're down the road. They've taken it down the road with corrupt elections and lots of other things. With you at my side, we will demolish the deep state. We will expel the warmongers from our government. We will get them out. We'll get them out. Let's attack that country. Nobody ever heard of it. Let's attack them. Let's lose our children. Let's lose our sons and daughters into a country that nobody ever heard of before, that doesn't want us there in the first place. We'll drive out the globalists. We'll cast out the communists, Marxists, and fascists. We'll throw off the sick political class that hates our country. And we will rout the fake news media and we will evict crooked Joe Biden from the White House on election night 2024. We have to. We have to. We have to. The great silent majority is rising like never before, and under our leadership, the forgotten man and woman will be forgotten no longer. You'll be forgotten no longer. Remember the term? I'd use it in 2016 a lot, and they were not forgotten. They were not, but now they're forgotten again. We will love our country. We will take care of our country. We will pray to God for our strength and for our liberty, and we will pray for God, and we will be with God. We're one movement, one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. And together we will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you all. Thank you very much. Iowa. Thank you. Did they get that? Place for you. Did what you did. It was awesome.
Very good. Thank you. Fried. I'm fucking hungry. You both. I was thinking about tacos. Some food.